Welcome to Traces of Trauma, where we explore the quiet echoes that trauma leaves behind and the gentle path of healing. I'm your host, Brian Arbor, inviting you to join me in conversations that honor our stories, our struggles, and the strength and grace it takes to move forward. This is a safe space to listen, reflect, and connect in the shared journey beyond our trauma. Welcome back, everyone. I'm excited to have with us today Christina Gray. She's the first veteran appearing on the podcast with me. I believe you said you were an Army veteran,
I am.
and she's an essential oil practitioner and founder of Rejoicing with Oils. Her passion for natural healing stems from a deeply personal place. As a military vet and military spouse living in South Korea, she faced some really heartbreaking challenges centering around her family and her daughter, and witnessing the side effects of traditional medication and knowing that there had to be another way. Her quest for answers led to the transformative power of essential oils, and she really poured herself into studying the science and the therapeutic potential there. And that knowledge blossomed into Rejoicing with Oils and her unique 3Rs method, which I definitely want you to share a little bit about later. And she focuses around revelation, restoration, and rejoicing as a path to healing. So, welcome, Christina. Thank you so much for being here. Anything else you'd like to say by way of introduction?
No, other than I'm excited to be here. Like I told you before, absolutely I love this safe place to share. I love that. And I love the title, Traces of Trauma. It's like you don't even think about the different things that pop up every now and then, and just like a little trace. And where does that come from? Oh, that's related to the trauma. I love it. I love it. So I'm really, really honored to be here.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. And it's so, I'm about to say something and I caught myself because I hate the thing I'm about to say, but I finally like mean it in my heart. Thank you for your service. I
Oh.
cringe so hard when I hear that in the course of my day. There are so many veterans who thrive and are proud of, what they've done in service of their country. And then there are those who are like me on my average day that are just like, ugh, it was, ugh, not consistent with like my heart and who I want to be and the things I had to do and the things I went through.
Brian, we are already vibing. You hear me?
So,
But thank you for your service, sir.
yeah,
Thank you for your service.
there are, it means something different coming from a fellow veteran.
It
It
does.
resonates differently. And from my heart, it's an acknowledgement of whatever you had to go through
Mhm.
to show up in a situation that hurt. It hurts to serve the way the Army demands,
Yeah,
and to choose to continue to show up in the hope that what you're doing matters, even though sometimes it might seem like it doesn't.
right. I
Thanks
can
for being here.
remember. Thank you. I can remember for a long, long time, I did not share that I served. I did not say anything about me being in the Army whatsoever because I just wanted to forget that part. But leading into the traces, I can't forget it because I'm married to a military personnel.
Yeah.
And so it's not always in my face, but it's in my face,
Yeah.
you know. So I definitely had a hard time. And it wasn't that proudness. It took a long time for me to get to the point where I said, oh, yeah, I served in the military. Yes, I'm an Army veteran. So it took me some time to come to grips with that and to be proud of it.
Yeah. I find myself coming to grips and not yet proud over here.
Mm.
So, um, it's just a pleasure, and I look forward to more veterans
Oh,
showing
yeah.
up in this space. I think we have a lot to contribute to each other.
It's
and
that part.
not a lot of spaces to
Mhm.
have these kinds of conversations with one another. So,
Right. And these conversations, I can remember before I even agreed to do the podcast, I think the first question I asked you was, are you a veteran?
mm,
Because I didn't want to talk to somebody that wasn't a veteran about my trauma that I experienced in the military that wasn't a veteran.
yeah,
So we already had that commonality. So I was like, well, I'm not going to discuss anything if they're not a veteran. I'm not saying that, there's just a special bond
yeah,
that veterans have in general. And so it's like, oh, you're a veteran? Yeah, yeah, I'm a veteran. Are you a veteran? Okay, where did you serve? Army, not, National Guard. Like, what did you do? So,
yeah.
and you're
And
my Army brother, so that's
what did you do in the military?
I don't always like to talk about that, but I actually worked at the Special Warhouse Training School for Special Forces in Fort Bragg, North
Okay.
Carolina. So I worked with the Green Berets,
All
and
right.
I love the Green Berets with all of my heart. They are the biggest teddy bears, and they are very protective of their female soldiers. I learned a lot from them. That was probably the happier time of my military career.
Awesome. And so you've mentioned there's some military trauma. I don't know anybody who escapes the military without some sort of trauma.
Some sort of trauma.
Is there anything you want to share here with the audience about that?
Yeah, we can definitely talk a little bit about it. So I encountered a sexual assault while I was in the military. And for the longest time, it's there's traces of trauma due to that. And you never get over it. You learn how to live better and deal with it. But I think for so long I suppressed or I said, oh, it didn't happen. Oh, it didn't happen. That didn't happen. No. And for the longest time, I just suppressed, suppressed, suppressed. And finally, it got to the point where I had to start acknowledging it. I couldn't even say the word rape for the longest time. I don't know why, but that was a blockage, but it was a hurdle I've gotten over. And then being able to say, yeah, I was the one that got sexually assaulted in the military.
Hmm.
That takes time to actually be able to say those things because you don't want people to know that you were that one that happened to you. You were, I don't know if I want to say a victim, but it happened to me, period.
Hmm.
People say victim, people say survivor. I'm just saying this is what happened to me.
Yeah. And it in our pre-recording conversation when we first met, it was like there's it's so difficult knowing how to start this kind of conversation with someone. And that commonality of having a shared background as veterans, it can be an icebreaker.
Mhm.
The military sexual trauma is so much more prevalent
Mhm.
than we think of.
Right.
Um, Military trauma as a whole is more prevalent than people
Mhm.
realize,
Right.
um, mostly because it's so difficult to speak of with someone who's never been in that kind of environment. It's like stepping into a foreign world
Mhm.
where what it means to be a person is different. My value as a human being is different in the military than it is out in the rest of life.
Right.
The the rules of existence are different,
Mhm.
and like our individualism is only permitted up to a certain point.
Agree. Yeah. Yeah.
So when something like sexual assault or sexual trauma happens in that environment, there's a unique set of concerns about coming forward.
Oh, yes. Who do you tell? I didn't tell anybody. My body had a lot of reactions to what took place, but like I can remember going to see medical professionals after it happened. But because of the trauma, like I was just literally in a zone. And I don't know if it was because of the trauma or because of the medication that they had me on, or I don't know what it was, but there's a lot of missed connections
Mhm.
immediately afterwards. And then because I didn't say anything at the time when I was at Bragg, all of a sudden stuff started resurfacing, you know, and that was when it was, oh, this is why I'm having some bad nightmares. Oh, this is why I'm feeling depressed. Oh, this is why. No, that can't be why because it didn't happen. I kept
Mhm.
telling myself, oh, it didn't happen. No, it didn't happen. It didn't happen. You know, so really my healing, I didn't have anybody to turn to. I remember my chain of command, they were concerned about me being depressed and sad, and I didn't really want to share what happened, but I felt like because of the pressure of being a soldier, I was being forced to share something that I wasn't comfortable sharing at the time.
Yeah.
And so that's that complexity that you were talking about with being in the military and dealing with trauma in itself. You're the person that, not person, but you're the industry or the place that allowed this to happen.
Yeah.
And yet now I'm being forced to express something that I don't even really know how to do it. But they sent me to see, you know, a therapist, behavioral health, and all of that. And it was just so, there was just more, in my opinion, more trauma on top of the trauma.
Yeah.
They felt like they were helping, but really it was amplifying everything because I didn't really even know at the time what to do, what to say, who I could trust, who could. So my healing did not really take place until after I got out of the military.
Yeah. And there's a an element here that's useful to highlight for our audience who haven't been in the military. The As a soldier, you need to be capable of operating efficiently. So having someone notice that you're withdrawn, you seem to be depressed, there's something going on, having what happened be forced out of you before you're ready to deal or tell your story so that you can it takes away the connection
Mhm.
of that experience, of that interaction, and it becomes about, oh, as one of the many tools in your toolbox in this unit, as soldier number 73 of this
Whatever.
platoon,
Yeah.
I am not operating at peak efficiency, and you're sending me to the mechanic to get fixed so that I can do my job. And you never know when you're speaking to your chain of command, or you're speaking to a military therapist, or you're dealing with med call, if who you're talking to is somebody who actually cares about you as a human being, or if
So,
somebody who is doing their job to restore one of the military's investments to peak
mhm.
operating mode. And
Yeah.
it gets in the it how could it not get in the way of actual healing?
Yeah. And that was definitely my experience.
Yeah.
For me, I felt like it was more so for them to cover up their backs because, oh gosh, well, you didn't recognize this soldier was going through this and blah, blah, blah. And this soldier's committed suicide now. And so I felt like that was the case with me, which was, you know, I'm not going to say the military is all bad. That was very wise of my chain of command to do it. But that part, that do they really care? Is it genuine? You know, and so, you know, as well as I know, it's all about not on my watch when it comes to the military, not necessarily because you care, but that could really be a career altering experience if you happen to do if you do happen to lose a soldier on your watch, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. And in the in preparing for this episode, it's one of those things that even though I may share with someone that I was in the military or I carry some form of PTSD and military trauma, I don't specify that part of that is sexual trauma.
Right.
My time in the military, I was with the National Guard, with the Army, and in an aviation unit, and we were one of the earliest waves into the Middle East
Yeah.
in like late 2002, early 2003.
Hmm.
And we were over there for a long ass time. And we extended and extended and extended and extended before we finally came home. Um,
I know about that.
and uh, and when I enrolled in the National Guard, it was out of desperation. I wanted the I wanted the education benefits. Like we grew up in poverty. There was no plan for my independence or my continued education. And I was desperate to get out and to make something of my life. And I made my parents agree to sign the early registration. And at 16, I committed to the National
You want it?
Guard and
Okay.
started drills. And I did my basic training. And shortly after I graduated high school and was out on my own, we got called up.
So you grew up real fast.
And at 16, I was still trying to pray the gay away. I was still like really aware that I have these urges and trying to convince myself and the world around me that it doesn't mean anything unless I do it. Like I can just do the right thing,
Right.
even though I feel all the wrong things. By the time my unit deployed, that perspective shifted. That sense of fear
Yeah.
of who I am and what does it mean about me and what does it mean for my future.
Right.
Like I was in a relationship
Hmm.
and having to hide that part of myself, having to play straight,
Hmm.
having to engage in conversations and do things that didn't feel right to maintain cover so that I wouldn't be like beaten
Singled
in
out.
my sleep
Yeah.
from people that are supposed to have my back. There's a kind of I mean, there's trauma there. You can
Yeah.
hear me like stuttering, just trying to get words out about it.
Right.
And I did things I'm not proud of. And thankfully, if I can say thankfully, I only harmed myself in all of that. Um, it would be different if I knew that I had done harm to someone else, trying to fit in and feel safe. And how crazy is that? The things that we do to try and feel safe in an organization where our role is to risk our life.
And protect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, for anybody out there who's dealing with any kind of sexual trauma, it's complicated.
Hmm.
And if you're someone adjacent to sexual trauma, hopefully this opens your eyes just a little bit to the complexity of what it takes to even look at those experiences and how to communicate about them and how to even begin to crack into healing, especially in a specialized environment like the military, where your identity is not fully your own.
Yes.
I'm curious, Christina, how did you find your way into your current practice, your current business with essential oils, and what impact has all of that exploration and discovery in your healing journey? Like, how has that impacted your personal experience?
So I'm going to start with being a military spouse. We were stationed in South Korea, and my oldest daughter, she's 20 now, got diagnosed with ADHD. Okay. And the physician at the time said, well, therapy doesn't work for her age. Okay. And he put her on different medication. The problem is, I think she was on 3 or 4 different ADHD medications. It was here, try this. Up, there's an issue I don't like. Okay, let's take her off, put her on another one. Up, there's an issue I don't like, take her off, put her on another one. And the problem that came to the surface was suicidal thoughts, self-harm, interruptions in her sleep, her appetite, and unbeknownst to me, my child's thinking there's something wrong with her, and it's actually the medication that the physician is prescribing for her.
And this
Um,
is VA doctors, yeah?
Actually, these are actual military doctors
Okay.
because my husband was or he still is active duty.
Okay.
And so, yes, this is all Army doctors,
Mhm.
Army physicians. And anyway, we moved to back to the States. We were in Pennsylvania, and she starts like throwing her head back violently. And it sounded like bones were cracking in the back of her neck. She starts violently moving her body. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? And I'm like, just stop it. And she's like, Mommy, I can't stop it. And I'm like, okay, we go to see a nurse practitioner. And I'm like, do you see what's going on with my child? And she's like, oh, that's normal. I'm like, that can't be normal. So next we go see a pediatrician. And the pediatrician's like, oh, no, ma'am, that is not normal. And she took her off the ADHD medication immediately. And she said, this looks like Tourette syndrome. In the meantime, my child is like violently throwing her head back, involuntarily moving her body. And I'm like, what in the world is going on with my child? Well, when we were in Korea, my child looked at me and she was like, Mom, there's got to be another way. Is there something else that we could do? And my mom was actually visiting us and she was like, oh, you might want to try essential oils. And I was like, oh, okay, essential oils. All you do is put the oil in a diffuser and voila, everything takes care of itself. I learned very quickly that was not the case in South Korea. So fast forwarding back to Pennsylvania, her pediatrician says to me, hey, you might want to look into CBD oils because they're doing research at Johns Hopkins and with Tourette syndrome, and you might want to look into that. And I thought, well, wait a minute, I'm already dabbled in essential oils. Maybe there's something more to this. And so I started doing research on what is ADHD? What is Tourette syndrome? What system in the body does this affect? Are there essential oils to help support those systems? And I found out that there is, and they can. And so that just dove into a whole lot of research for me. And my daughter now, several years later, she's not on the medication anymore, bringing it back home to me being a veteran. After taking care of my child, all of a sudden, all of that stuff that I had suppressed all those years dealing with my own trauma resurfaced. And that's when I found myself in bed 2 weeks out the month, not being able to go outside even for a walk without having anxiety, without always being concerned about if somebody's following me, being in a place where I'm concerned about, am I even safe in this place? And I realized that the same institution that caused my trauma and caused my child's trauma, because there was trauma involved with that for her, and I just went into full-fledged mama bear mode. You're not going to do this to my child. And so I think that's what propelled me into studying the essential oils and learning the different techniques and using the essential oils. And so I taught a class on emotions and essential oils, and I did it specifically for veterans.
Hmm.
Because a lot of times we don't we're taught suppress, suppress, suppress. I think I had shared with you before, if you find your battle buddy on the battlefield and they're passed out, what's the first thing that you have to do? Well, you have to find where the wound is. And so a lot of times our emotions are those wounds. And so when we find the wound, the next thing that we have to do is address the wound. And so addressing the wound can look like so many different things. And that's where essential oils come into play. Sometimes it's as simple as I'm fearful, recognizing that I'm fearful. Okay. Sometimes that could do it. But sometimes it goes deeper. That fear goes deeper. And I think I had explained to you, in our brains, there's a little like small pea size amygdala. And the amygdala is responsible for retaining emotions and memories and releasing emotions and memories. So when it comes to using essential oils, they play a part in helping us to release those emotions. And so everything that I learned with dealing with my child, I started applying it to my own PTSD. And I found it to be extremely beneficial, especially when I actually was in counseling and recognizing. For me, one of my things that I deal with, or I dealt with, because I'm getting much, much better with it, is whenever I feel confined in a closed space, even though I'm in an open space, but whenever I feel trapped, all of a sudden I feel like I'm going to pass out. And one of the things I recognize that supports me with that is peppermint.
Hmm.
Peppermint essential oil is really good at calming a lot of this down and helping me to recognize and have that good, healthy self-talk that I need to have with myself. Girl, you can get up and leave. You are free to go. You're not confined. You're able to be released. And so when it comes to my daughter, people think that when it comes to using essential oil, it's just one oil or a drop of oil in a diffuser, and then everything is fixed. No, it goes deeper than that. And so I like to teach my clients one of the techniques that I use, which is called Symphony of the Cells. And it focuses on the spine and the bottoms of the feet. And so in that, there's a release of emotions. And so there's several ways you can release emotions. Sometimes just smelling an essential oil, the emotions will be released. Okay. If you address the emotion, it's released. Even working out, another aromatic way to release the emotion. I tell my clients, you can put the oil on your chest, put the oil on the bottom of your feet and go work out. I don't know about you if you when you were in the military, the runner zone. I love the runner zone. And it's a good way, it's a healthy way to release some of those negative emotions as well with the
Yeah.
effect of the aromatherapy. And another way is actually through counseling. When you're sitting down with your therapist, diffusing essential oils. Because as those emotions rise to the surface, they're being addressed through your therapist, and you're able to release them through a lot of the conversations where they give you those tools, how to have that good, healthy self-talk. It just kind of calms everything down. So those are just a few of the things that kind of brought me full circle to where I'm at now and how beneficial it is to use and teach a lot of individuals about how to use essential oils.
Yeah.
Did that answer
Awesome.
your question?
Yeah. And
Okay.
I've got a shelf full of essential oils here in my office, and my personal use has mostly, I'd say about 80-90% been like instinct and intuition.
And
And
that is so, most people we're so used to, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Western medication, but I mean, if you know my story now where I'm kind of like,
the West has done us
I,
dirty.
I don't feel too safe about taking that.
Yeah.
But in having all of those oils, I tell a lot of my clients, it's not just here, take this oil and it's going to miraculously work for you. No, when you start using essential oils, it's a journey. It is literally a journey. And when you think about whichever path you decide to take when it comes to the natural path or the Western medicine path, they're both trial and error. They're both journeys. You just
Yeah.
have to decide which one you really want to take. And so for me, I offer my clients a virtual scan. And what the virtual scan does is it helps us detect the four core body systems, six lifestyle areas, and for my veterans, the emotions.
Yeah.
Because if we don't address the emotions, a lot of times we're not at ease. Our body is not at ease. And in my opinion, that leads to disease within the body.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when the emotion comes up, it also tells me which essential oils are compatible with my client's DNA. So a lot of times it takes some of that guesswork out of it because we know this is a positive oil for you. So, like, I like it when clients say they have a lot of oils, but my next question is, do you know what to do with all of them?
Certainly not all of them. There are things that I learned are not helpful for sleep.
Mm-hmm.
There are
Mm-hmm.
things that I would expect to be helpful for focus and alertness at sitting
Mm-hmm.
at the desk that aren't for me.
Yes. Yes. And
Um,
it's very interesting that you bring that up because I talk about that a lot when it comes to my veterans and my little babies who are dealing with autism and ADHD. And so a lot of times because of the trauma that the veterans have encountered, our sleep, what's the first oil you think about when you're like, I need help sleeping? What's the first
so
oil
for
that you
me,
think about?
it's lavender.
It's lavender, but lavender is calming, doesn't help you sleep. It
Yeah.
doesn't help release those emotions. Okay. And so there's like a whole, I shouldn't say a whole, but there's some really good essential oils and blends that I specifically say is exclusive for veterans. Because sometimes, my first question to my clients is, well, why are you not sleeping? What is preventing you from sleeping? And sometimes it's so much going on up here. Well,
Yeah.
lavender is not going to calm all that down. Okay. It's going to make you feel nice and calm, but it's not calming the brain.
Yeah.
There's other oils that help to break up that friction and calm the brain. Believe it or not, peppermint is one of those that
Yeah.
can help calm your brain. My little one loves peppermint oil right before she goes to sleep. Or not peppermint oil, she loves peppermint tea before she goes to sleep. And so
Yeah.
peppermint can be a calming oil as well. But there's so many different uses for essential
Hmm.
oils. And like you said, there's the journey that we
Yeah.
have to go on when we're trying to decide which oil works best for us. But the scan that I do takes a lot of that guesswork out of it because it even tells us why you're not sleeping.
Yeah.
What part of your body is not allowing you to sleep? What's going on inside?
Yeah. It I started putting lavender oil on my feet at bedtime rather
Mhm.
than having it be an aromatic.
Mhm.
Um, and when
That's a part of the journey.
I haven't used my diffuser at bedtime in a long time, but what really I found worked for me was a mix of copaiba and Roman chamomile.
I have a male client that I worked with, and we did the scan, and Copaiba kept coming up for him. And I was like, this must be your oil. Copaiba is actually what we would call doTERRA's version of CBD oil. And so he has trauma that he's dealing with as well. So copaiba is one of those essential oils that you can use to help release some of that trauma too
Hmm.
and help with you be able to sleep. So,
Yeah. It it's just interesting because the impact of medication, especially when someone's young and hasn't had a chance for their brain tissue is not even finished developing,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Um, to impact that process
Hmm.
with drugs.
Yeah.
The I just had a conversation with a psychiatrist who really warns about the dangers of medication that are not expressed
No.
in the traditional therapy and psychiatric models.
Mhm.
Um, it's kind of one of those like we prescribe this because it's what there is to prescribe, but like they probably wouldn't take that medication themselves if they had a choice.
Mhm.
Like the folks in tech that know that they need to stay away from social media and don't let their kids engage. And it's like,
Right.
okay, we produce this, but we know
The
we're
dangers.
not going to use it.
Mhm.
Oils have felt like a much safer testing ground than like chemical compounds and medication. There is an element of allergy or irritation,
Yep.
but it at least in my personal experience, and I'd love to hear what you have to say about this, the oils themselves have not produced a like a counteraction where I think I'm using something to calm myself down, but instead I'm like having these weird violent surges, or I'm taking something to alleviate depression, but I find myself like swinging from I feel all right all the way back down to more depressed than I was to start with, back and forth and back and forth. Like the oils have been a much more centered, like centering, grounded kind of practice
Mhm.
than testing with medication. Like testing
Yeah.
with oils wasn't as scary as testing with medication.
And it's probably because you were knowledgeable about what an actual essential oil is. And a lot of times I've heard it said before, with medication, there's side effects. Well, a lot of people, when it comes to using essential oils, there's side benefits. Okay. And so I'm not completely against medication, but essential oils can actually work even better when combined with the medication than the herbs. Because when it comes to using the herbs and medication, there's a lot of clashes that can take place. If you're, on an SSRI and then you're trying to look at an herb, and there's so many different things that can clash when it comes to using the herbs with the medication. But when it comes to using the essential oils, it's not. It doesn't work that way. It's a good combination. Like we were talking about, you know, when you're dealing with your PTSD, when you're in the heat of the work and you're on the medication helps to calm down some of this. But the essential oil really helps to do the release. The medication is not releasing any of it. It's just kind of calming it down.
Yeah.
And sometimes in certain situations, the essential oil will calm it down. And it may get to the point for those individuals that have a desire to completely get off of their medications where they become so well versed in the essential oils that they're able to say, okay, I don't need this anymore. I know that if I have this, I can use this oil. I know that if I'm dealing with this situation, I can use this oil. So I've always said I'm not against medication. Medication is not a bad thing. It can be a very, very useful thing. But in my daughter's experience, my child being diagnosed with ADHD, I don't think medication was necessary by any means.
Yeah.
I think that ADHD is actually a superpower. I think that God just gave her a different way of learning, a different way of understanding things. When it comes to dealing with people that have ADHD, they're able to hyper focus on something. It has to be that thing that they want to hyper focus on. But what if the thing that they're hyper focusing on is something that you could benefit from? Why would I want to suppress that?
Hmm.
I just can't see.
Yeah.
I can't see that at all.
Yeah. I'm over here hyper focused on healing and trauma
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and like driven. This is a third episode I've recorded this week.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, and there's editing to do, and there's
And
like
you're
show
excited
notes to
about it,
compose, and there's
right?
like cover art to manage, and there's logistics to handle because this is still a very young podcast and I'm still standing things up, and the intensity of the work and the volume of things that have yet to be handled are sometimes overwhelming and like leave me in that state of freeze and depression, but that's maybe 15%
That's
of,
really good.
and the rest of it is either excitement or as easy as breathing, because here's something that I am passionate about, that I feel good dealing with for myself, that it brings me joy to share with others.
Right.
And the thing with medication or, whatever approach we take in our healing, in that journey, we have to do the healing. The medication doesn't cure the depression, it
Yeah,
doesn't heal it.
it doesn't.
It stifles the expression
Right.
of that trauma.
I can remember when my daughter was eventually diagnosed with Tourette syndrome, the doctor, and at the time, she needed medication because her body was tired. I mean, can you imagine just moving your body involuntarily throughout the day from sun up to sundown? She was exhausted. And so she needed the medication. But what kind of opened up my eyes a bit was that the doctor was like, this is only going to suppress her tics. It's not going to fix it, but it's just going to suppress it.
Yep,
And so that's when I was like, well, why is she even taking it? Other than to give her body a break,
yep,
which it really needed. And, as we invited more oils into our home, as mommy learned more about how the essential oils can help and support, she was able to get off of her medication for Tourette syndrome. She still has Tourette's. Her tics are not violent. Just recently, when I say recently, 2 years ago, no, 2 years, 1 year ago, her tics got violent like they were initially before. And so I didn't freak out. I was like, well, what would I have done if I didn't know about essential oils and the Symphony of the Cells technique? I would have taken her to ER. They would have put her on medication to only suppress. But yet I said, lay down, baby. By the time I put the third oil on her, she was like, thank you, Mom, and went on about her business. It was no big deal. And so there's so many beautiful benefits to learning about how essential oils can support our bodies so that
yeah,
we can actually heal.
yeah. And there's a leaning on one method, I feel, is a mistake,
Oh,
right? So if you need a freaking break, like that's how I turned to the VA. I was exhausted from doing all the things that I knew to do, and I just wanted it to be easier.
hmm.
And so I like 20 years after being back from a war zone, went to the VA for the first time and said, I'm tired. I want help. I want this to be easier. What can we do? And I'm still on a fairly low dose,
Hmm.
but it's been a relief, and it's given me some space to dig into trauma work at a deeper level
Right.
without the awakening of those things
Mhm.
wreaking havoc in my life and my relationships.
Exactly.
It when whatever course of treatment provides some room or some relief, it's really important for us to then do the work to heal what we can heal, and to understand that, just like mental health medication or essential oils or yoga or whatever you might engage in is a journey, your healing is also a journey.
Yes.
And it's not something that is guaranteed to have an end.
It's a continual work.
Yeah.
It's definitely a continual work, but it's like there's a progression in it. For me, not even being able to say the word rape, or for me even to acknowledge that this happened to me, where I'm here on a podcast now sharing it. There's different steps to it. And so it's a continual journey that you're going to be on, and it's a continual process, but it gets better and better and better and easier and easier.
Yeah. So you've mentioned the scans, the assessment, the testing, the kind of finding the right oils for the person you work with.
Hmm.
You've said a bit about that restoration, the release of emotion, the helping, using the oils to help the body actually let go.
Hmm. And a
What
lot
about rejoicing?
of time. Oh, there's so many things to rejoice about. If you're getting into the revelation, restoration, rejoicing, revelation is revealing what's going on. You're dealing with trauma. Okay. The restoration process is, how can essential oils help you? And that's where I come into play, where we sit down, we have a consultation, and we decide, okay, well, the scan pulled up this oil. Let's see the best way to use it, because you can use oils aromatically, topically, and internally. But even in using those oils in those three ways, there's several different sub ways to use them. Okay, aromatically. Aromatically could be in the diffuser, aromatically could be on your body, topically can be putting it on the bottom of your feet. It could also be doing the symphony of the cells. And there's another technique called the waterfall technique, you know, to support that. So those are different ways of restoration. But the rejoicing part for me, the biggest rejoicing part for me, is when my clients come back to me and they're like, girl, I slept last night for the first time. And it was like really good sleep, or girl, I'm able to go outside and not be concerned about my anxiety, or my anxious feelings. So for me, it's the rejoicing part is, I can remember when my daughter was going through what she was going through, and I was doing the research, and I was like, oh, okay, so the revelation is this essential oil does this, and this. Okay, now how do I bring restoration? Oh, I could use it aromatically, topically, or internally. Okay, let's do that. And the rejoicing is when it actually worked.
Yeah.
That was the rejoicing part for me. And so whenever I have a client and we've kind of nailed it as far as the oil that supports them, that's like the biggest thing to me. And
Yeah.
the 3 R's method, revelation, restoration, and rejoicing, can be applied in so many different aspects of our lives. With you, the revelation that, hey, I'm different. There's something that's going on internally with me. And your restoration was, maybe I need to release this. And then the rejoicing now is actually being able to talk about it and actually be okay with. So it can be applied in several different ways of our lives. And so it's just, the method that I use when I am introducing my clients to essential oils.
Yeah. There's it I really want to lean into rejoicing here for a little bit because it can devolve into like a hollow practice of gratitude for gratitude's sake. And that forced positivity without authentic, heartfelt, like joy it's not the same. And when we're looking at dealing with trauma, like identifying those traces that leak into our daily life and being able to see, oh, I think this way because of that thing way back then. Maybe that, maybe this is one of those moments where I'm influenced by that event and I don't need to be, right?
Mhm.
Um, then like figuring out, okay, well, like, how do I deprogram that? How do I unconnect the present moment from that past? How do I disconnect these experiences so that I'm free to engage with this without the influence of that past trauma. And then rejoicing serves a purpose rather than just being a feel good moment.
Rejoicing in the accomplishment of, yes, that happened to me. Yes, it still has traces throughout my life, but it's no longer putting me in a bad place.
Yeah.
And then rejoicing about the accomplishment of the knowledge that you've gained. You know, when you're using essential oils, there's constantly knowledge that you're gaining, even if it's not just using essential oils, but doing something to benefit your body. You know, you brought up yoga. I happen to be a Pilates, and there's a certain place of comfort and healing in that as well. Rejoicing and finding those things that help you handle and deal with the traces of your trauma. You know, rejoicing in the fact that you have a toolbox now that you're able to open up and use when it's deemed necessary, instead of just being in the dark and not knowing what to do, not knowing how to move forward, not knowing how to handle it.
Mm.
You know, to me, that's rejoicing. You know, I'm naturally a positive person. And I totally get how in the world can you connect rejoicing with trauma? But I think it's in the accomplishment of no longer allowing the trauma to be in charge. You
Yeah.
know, when I talk to my veterans or my clients about their emotions, you know, we have positive emotions, we have negative emotions. It's not saying that they're bad, but we need to come to a happy medium where we're at peace. So, yes, we've had trauma in our lives. We've also had some really, really good times in our lives. And so, coming to that happy medium where, yes, we have trauma and we have all these wonderful things that are happening in our life, but putting everything in its place so that it's no longer driving our bus. So the trauma is no longer driving our bus. So the
Yeah.
emotions from the trauma are no longer driving our bus.
Yeah.
That part is rejoicing.
Yeah. And there's purpose in turning up the volume on our accomplishments.
Hmm.
The the trauma is often loud and noticeable. Sometimes it's quiet and sneaky, but our accomplishments are small steps taken, and celebration builds a conviction
Hmm.
that we are, in fact, healing, that we do have some power over who we are and how we feel.
Hmm.
The rejoicing, it kind of seals the victory into place so that it doesn't just slip away unacknowledged. It's kind of like, if you're training for a marathon and you place in the marathon and you come back with a medal to hang on your shelf, that's great. But what happens if in your workout room at home or wherever your trophy case is, there's a ribbon for every day that you went out and trained for that marathon? And you can see every victory along the way
Hmm.
to the big one that you finally felt was worthy of celebrating, right? That acknowledging our growth
Hmm.
as we grow rather than when we hit what we feel is important enough to be a milestone. It's rejoicing in those small steps
And
to,
rejoicing in the power, being
yeah,
able to take that power back. That was big for me. Being able to recognize, girl, you do have power,
yeah.
you know.
So even if the work isn't done, right? Um, rejoicing in the accomplishment.
Yep. No matter how big or small.
Yeah, really great. Before we wrap up for the day, I understand you're in business. You're obviously open for more clients. That'd be great.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, this audience is certainly ripe barrel of fish for what you offer. What would you say to an audience that is already engaged in identifying the traces of trauma in their life and up to do something about it? How can they connect with you? What do you have to offer for anybody who's listening to this episode?
I would say the biggest thing is compassion because been there, done that. Like we had talked about earlier, it's difficult for a non-veteran to talk to for a veteran to talk to a non-veteran. That's difficult in itself. But to know that the person that you're entrusting such a precious part of you too also has compassion for what you're going through. And so I do offer my clients a 15-minute free consult to see if we're even a good fit, to see if essential oils is even going to be a part of your journey. It may be and it may not be. But either way, we spoke about the military not recognizing, do they really care? Is it genuine? I am a very genuine person. I care a lot. A lot of that comes across, may come across in the podcast, but it comes across from a lot of my clients as well, that I genuinely care. I tell my clients, I didn't go to college to do this. This is not what I went to college for. This is not what I got my degree for. And so I have to have a certain level of passion, compassion, and care to do what I do.
Great. And that 15-minute free consult will be in the show notes, as well as other ways you can connect with Christina Gray and Rejoicing with Oils. If you have any interest, curiosity, or you can already hear that you're committed to engaging in this particular journey of healing, please do reach out. That 15-minute consult is available. And thanks for following the Traces of Trauma podcast. Like the show, follow on whatever platform you're listening on, and you can find us on Facebook at Traces of Trauma and at Substack for more of my personal story. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.